Grieving Self. I am Carl. I'm a German Shepherd dog, and sometimes I'm an addict and alcoholic, and I go on a podcast and talk about being sober. And my sobriety is August 22nd, 2014.
I am Lindsey. I'm an alcoholic, and my sobriety date is September 6th, 2015.
This is SoberPod.
Soberpod.com. Yeah, SoberPod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.
SoberPod is a podcast dedicated to the idea that one addict or alcoholic, or even a German Shepherd dog, is helping one another. Helping one another is crucial. That's what I get for ad-libbing. Helping one another is crucial to building a life in recovery. So join us this season as we read from our books, 366 effing days sober, and Lindsey's book, Spirit Vigilante. And you can get these books by going to soberpod.com or the Spirit Vigilante. And by the way, it's the best way to support the podcast. So if you are getting anything out of these podcasts and it is helping, we would love a little help along the way. So go ahead and purchase the books. It's the best way to support us and yourself and the podcast. Oh, look, it's a win-win-win. I love win-win-wins. Lindsey, what are we doing here today? How are you doing? How's it been?
I'm doing great. Actually. Not actually. I'm doing great. Period.
not surprisingly.
Yeah. There need not be a qualifier.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I am doing great. I'm doing great. And how are you, Mr. Carl?
I am. I'm good. I just went to the doctor yesterday, and we've decided to not move forward with the cancer treatments because I have responded a little too well, and so yeah, it's like I like in this treatment basically like the more pain and hurt and the more your penis hurts, the better it is, basically, at this point, apparently, because my penis really hurts. And
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, and I asked about my chances for like moving forward, like what that means, and basically, it's like if you do the maintenance doses, it really only ups you like a few percentage points of like your chances of being cancer free in 5 years. So he gave me like a ballpark of like anywhere between 75 and 85% of being cancer free, which pretty much means 80%, right? So he's like, yeah, I'll give you about 80% chance being cancer free in 5 years. I'm like, I'll take 80%. So yeah, let's run with that. As long as I don't have to have people sticking things down my hoo-ha anymore and, you know, making my penis hurt, I think I'll take 80%.
Down your hoo-ha or up your hoo-ha?
Well, you know, you're laying down. so it's a down. I mean,
got it.
Mine doesn't really go in any direction anyway.
Enough. Silly of me to ask.
So Lindsey, what are we doing here? I mean, I know we're supposed to be talking about sobriety, but you know, we like to keep people up to date with like who we are and all this other good stuff. But you know, there's a lot of people out there just you know getting sober, and they're thinking about getting sober, and you know maybe they're like newly formed in their sobriety. So you know, one of the things that came across my thought processes, and it's because like I always pay attention to newcomers when they talk or when they see their writings on Reddit and that kind of stuff, is you know it's really getting sober is such a huge transformational process, like internally, not always externally, even though externally is great, like it's like wonderful, like you know because big changes happen, you know, you get sober and you have all these big changes, but really what happens a lot for people, you know, especially me, you know, because outwardly not a lot of my life didn't change. You know, I got sober. I had the same car. I had the same house, same wife, same kids, and, you know, same as it ever was, kind of a, you know, thing from the Talking Heads. And, but, you know, how did I get here? And so I internally, like, I'm going through a lot of big changes, and I don't really understand it, and it's hard. And I kind of want to go back sometimes when I'm getting newly sober. Like I don't like I start thinking like, maybe I was making too big of a deal out of this thing. Maybe I'm not that bad, or you know what I mean? Like there's just like I start to negotiate a little bit, and it reminds me of like the grieving process. And not only that, it's like the reading today is about grief, but it's more about traditional grief, right? But yeah, the grieving process of like the self or the change and the resistance that we have to all that stuff. So Lindsey, tell me, what was your experience in that process? Like, did you, when you were getting sober, did you have a hard time trying to get your head around like, that idea, or what was your experience?
Definitely. I think when we make any change, even if we know it's the right change, there's still a fear of leaving the familiar, especially as alcoholics and addicts. I feel that we really lock in our identity almost as a coping mechanism. Like, I'm just this way because that's the way I am. And for me, that was the party girl. I was just the drunk Lindsey, wherever I was. And even though when I was getting sober, I intellectually knew it was a good call on the trajectory of my life, there's definitely this grieving of those old people, places, and things, myself included. And so when Carl brought up this topic for today, I was just thinking, I relate to that completely. I felt that way at the beginning. I was really scared of losing my personality, of becoming like a cookie cutter sober person and becoming boring and not having the same interests and not doing the same things. And there's definitely a grief in that, a grief of past versions of myself. Still today, I can get wistful and nostalgic. So how did you experience that at the beginning, or what was your fear around that?
Well, in the beginning, I was much younger than I am today. It's so funny. And I still had this, even at 42 years old, I still had this identity that was all caught up in like, I am Carl the fuck up. I am Carl the crazy one. I am Carl the rebel. I am like, I am different. And I am like, I just, all these things. Like, I just felt like I was like, I don't belong here. No matter where it was, like, I don't belong there. Right. So it's so funny. And again, I think I'm really coming at this from the perspective of the 12-step recovery ideology, right? Because one of the things that, like, for me, because that's my experience, I can't deny my experience. I think it's funny, if I'm going to sidetrack a little bit here, I think it's so fucking hilarious how people like get long-term recovery and then they poo-poo Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or whatever Anonymous or 12-step fellowship. They poo-poo it, almost fucking completely forgetting that they had to go through that process in order to become who they are today. Kind of fucking makes me like, every time I hear it, I go, so where'd you get your start? And then they'll be like, oh, I started 12-step, but I stopped doing that after 5 years. And because, they this, that, and this, and the other. And I'm like, oh, like they didn't learn anything there to get to where they are. Anyway, I digress. So my point there being, it's like, I walked into 12-step recovery and they said shit like, you have to get rid of old ideas. And I was just like, oh, I don't know what the fuck that means. That you have to, there's the destruction of self. Like, ooh, destruction of self. It's like, I mean, it all sounds very like, oh shit, like we gotta get a sledgehammer out on Carl. But Carl doesn't like any of that talk, right? And that, I absolutely was so afraid of losing the parts and pieces of me that I like, dude, like I love being like that fucking like that wrench in the system, like at work and that kind of a thing, or in a group of friends, being able to drop like just the right F-bomb, right? or just because I had control. Like, those are the things that worked for me. That's how I had control. And what they were describing to me in the 12-step recovery land was like a set of principles and values that I had no familiarity with. Like, I didn't know what the word integrity meant. I had no fucking clue. That F-bomb was used for emphasis. So I had no clue. And I'll tell you, it was like, I was so afraid of becoming one of those people, they all seem like automatons to me too. It's like, oh, you all just like, you go along to get along and everything is good. It just seemed ridiculous to me. And I had no point of reference to be able to even begin to understand what they were talking about. So you can imagine I was terrified. I was confused. I was like, I was befuddled by half the shit that they said most of the time, because that's not my that's not my lived experience. My lived experience is like, fuck you, and I'm gonna go do what I want, and I'm the badass over here, and I'm not part of this system. I'm gonna throw it on the ground. Like, I just was not a part of anything that these people were about. So a lot of it was very scary for me. So, but you know what? It's like you said, like, I knew that I was doing a good thing, right? Like, and there's that underlining, like, I know that, like, I'm not a part of this system, quote unquote, but I would really like to be. Like, I have my face pressed against the glass and like, can you guys let me in? Right? Do I deserve to be here, kind of a thing. So that was like underneath a little bit that happened for me. So I kept coming back, is what they say. And then I just kept listening and kind of going along until I started to chip away at other things. So that was a really hard thing for me, as you can hear. Like, I had a really hard time coming to terms with the what I thought I was going to be, which is, it was nothing like what I thought. Nothing is what we think, right? Did you think that, like, you were, that when you looked at these do-gooders and these fucking, these sober people, did you think like, oh, I could, like, how fake and fucking terrible they are, and like how, like, geez, like the angel on their shoulder really got to them, you know what I mean? Like, what did you think in that way? Did you judge them like that?
Oh, that's, as you're talking, like, the word that's coming to me is judgmental. I was so judgmental. And I just thought, these people make their life 12-step programs. And, and that's not going to be me. I have a life. Maybe they don't. I really felt like they were taking all of my time and money.
your dollars. Your
my dollar, literally,
Yeah.
literally my dollar. When you think of how much I was spending on alcohol and weed, it's crazy to even, there's no comparison. So yeah, I was super judgmental, and that's because I was scared. Just like you said, we kind of were intrigued by it and kind of knew that we could feel better on that side. And at the same time, I had one foot out, one foot in.
I did that for a long time too. I felt that way for a long time. Yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah. So, my whole thing is like, I didn't want to become one of them. Even my wife commented at one point when we went to a function. She's like, they all dress and talk the same. And I was just like,
really?
Yeah. And I was just like, oh my God, like, is it that bad? Like, I didn't really notice, like, and she's right. Like, a lot of the old timers, they actually did dress and talk, because they all came from the same area. They all like came from the same, upbringing. Yeah. It's like, of course they're all going to dress and talk the same, most of them anyway. So, the one thing that, like, that I had a really hard time with, and I mentioned it, which is like, I had a way of operating that worked for me. I had a way of existing in the world. And now, and even when I was early sober, like, I was sober. Like, I got sober, right? And so why did I need to change? Like, what I mean? Why did I need to, all this destruction of self and all this other shit? And again, the hard language of 12-step recovery comes in there, and they say it very plainly. And it's like they say the same man or person will drink again, right? And it's like, and I just go, oh, well, that's pretty ominous too. And it's like, because I don't want to do that. But you have to, there's almost like a level of acceptance that you have to get to at that level to say, like, again, it's first step stuff, right? You know, and you just kind of go, I'm powerless over alcohol. My life is unmanageable, right? And you kind of go like, oh, like you're telling me my life is unmanageable. But hey, dude, I'm sober. I'm going to work. You know, I don't have any warrants out for my arrest. I am like, you know, I'm bringing home, you know, money. My wife is happier. My kids are happier. Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're happier. So, but me being sober, everything's supposed to be happier, and the fact is like, it's actually not, but I think that it is. You know what I mean? Like on the surface, everything is kind of copacetic. I'm just not passing out in my, with my boxers on, with spilling rum on the couch anymore. The only difference for everybody around me is basically like, oh, he actually gets up in the morning now. Like that's the big difference for them, So I guess that's the thing is like, I don't really see it at that point. I think just stopping drinking is fine. Right. So, but now, I see that stuff. It's like the same man will drink again. I'm introduced to that idea and I have to come to a level of acceptance a little bit more. Right. Because again, I'm thinking, oh, maybe it wasn't such a, maybe I was making a mountain out of a molehill, and like, oh, maybe I wasn't that bad. Maybe, maybe I can have just one.
I was just gonna say, like, maybe I was a little dramatic, maybe I didn't really need to get help. And then also when you were talking about how it seemed like everything was better, why do we need to continue? Why do we need to keep doing any kind of inner work? And our bar was so low. If you think about it, right?
Yeah. From who we were.
The bare minimum of not drinking and the change that made from not drinking, getting rid of the alcohol seemed and is monumental. And I think once I'll speak for myself, once I settled into that sober life a little bit and my head got louder and things got more real, I realized that I needed more in my life than just, and I don't mean to minimize being physically sober. It's a huge thing. I know for my heart and soul, I needed to be elevating my life in some way, or else I was going to go right back.
Did you know that, like, internally? Did you have a feeling about that, or did you talk to somebody about that?
I don't know. I don't know if I knew that that's what it was. I think there was always a longing inside of me for wanting to live on a deeper level, and alcohol just drowned it. So then once I gave up the alcohol, those voices started, that internal voice started being like, okay, now what are you going to do? Like I knew there was a greater purpose for me or something. And so I had to listen to it when I got sober, because if I didn't, then I was just going to put myself in that old prison again, whether I was drinking or not, and just living in denial.
Yeah, so it's so strange because I hear you say that, and I have a real point of reference where I didn't tell anybody outwardly, but I said internally, and it was when my wife went on a trip, and I moved all the alcohol out to the curb, and it was basically I was 60 days sober at home by myself alone, and I had contemplated seriously drinking because she was gone. It was a Friday. I had 2 days. I was like, I can get super shit faced. Nobody will know.
No one will know.
And then I literally said to myself, like, if I don't do something more than just get sober, I'm going to drink. And that's when I started to go to meetings again, because I was like, because I knew the meetings in the rooms, and I knew like if I don't take this another step further, I am not going to make it. So I was sober for 60 days, doing great, and then of course all it took was for my wife to go on a short weekend trip, and I was like, I'm gonna get shit faced, because I still had alcohol in the house too, So I needed to take it a step further. So that internal monologue of like, Carl, if you don't go seek more additional help, this is going to happen again, and this is going to be worse, And I just knew it. Like there's a part of me. So it's so funny. You just have to stop and listen, right? You have to pay attention. And dude, that's so hard when you're drinking. That's for sure. So I guess, talking about overall, right? So setting this up, like I am newly sober. You're newly sober. You start to get some sense of self and understanding about that person. Maybe you're listening a little bit about what the needs are, whatever that may be, and you kind of you start to learn to listen to that stuff. How do you go about like getting rid of the self, right? Because and maybe not getting rid of the self. I think it should be phrased differently. Getting rid of the parts that are not yourself, right? And then building on the new foundation, moving forward. And again, there's this moment, and they talk about it in 12-step, where it's like, if I get rid of everything about who I am, I'll just be the whole, in the donut. Like there'll be nothing left of me, and I just won't exist. Oh, it's so existential. But the fact is like, you're shedding the pieces. You talk about this in your book. You talk about shedding the skin of the snake, and we talked about it on the podcast, and then building on top of that. It's like, how did you get a hold of your mindset in order to do that? What changed in your mind at that point that said, you know what, I can be one of these people. I can go do this. Like, what changed for you that said, like, you know what, I can be one of these fucktards and still hold on to my sense of self? Sorry, had to throw in fucktard somewhere.
Of course, at least once per day.
At least.
What was it? Gosh, I wish I had some deep moment. I think I finally realized I had nowhere else to go. Like I didn't have any other ideas, and I had to realize that my ideas had got me there. And it's interesting when you say how we're so scared and ambivalent about this destruction of self, because what were we doing before we came into recovery? Literally destroying ourselves. Right?
How did that happen? See, a lot of people think about this as a defeatism, right? Like I'm like, you guys are going along and like you guys are like just powerless and and that's just not. I mean, that's technically those are the words that they say, but that's not really what is happening here. Like, we're surrendering to win, kind of the idea, and that's a concept to hold those two ideas at the same time is a. It's a real solid understanding that you can get to, but it takes a little effort, Sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, that idea of the destruction of self and how I was totally self-sabotaging and running my life into the ground. It almost is like you said earlier with, we're destroying the parts of ourselves that aren't really ourselves. Because I think that's what we were doing. And I think it was that part of ourselves that was winning the argument of just complete. I know I was just, my life, I was going to die soon if I kept on that path. So now we're given the opportunity to use discernment in what we're destroying, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to word destroy, whatever. We get to decide what parts of us to keep and what parts to let go. Whereas before it was just my values went right out the door. My morals went right out the door. I didn't realize that that's what I was doing, but I was destroying my real self. So now it's almost when you're in recovery, you can let your real self, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, actually start making the decisions and trusting that. And I was going to say, it's so funny, the people that are against 12-step programs, they make a religion out of bashing 12-step. Right? So, like, as passionate they are, as passionate as they are about anti 12 step, whereas we don't care. We're like, do it or don't do it. I don't bash anyone who doesn't do 12 step or who does smart recovery or who goes to you do you. It's just there is this movement where they're so, I hope they're putting that much energy into their recovery. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, you being in 12-step land, you get a lot of like, and again, I also reflect when I think about people who like, I talk to who do find out that I'm in recovery, and they're like, oh, what's your story kind of thing, and I tell them like, blah blah, and I just imagine that they like go, oh, here's a cult member, that kind of a thing, and like they're imagining me that way, but the truth is like, it is just a part of life, and like I say, for a lot of people, I don't care if you get higher power, hire a therapist, I really don't care, as long as you're getting sober. Any harm reduction is good reduction, and I don't care how you get it, and I don't care at what state. I think what in this episode specifically, I'm just trying to convey the idea that like, if I stayed the same person that I was, I knew that I was going to drink again. I knew it. Like there was just like intuitively, I knew I had done this before, right? And I knew that if I hadn't done something more deliberate, and like you said, more selective or, discernment, right? About some people would like say the metaphor is like a disease, for instance. like you need to cut, like the disease is basically attacking me, quote unquote. Some 12-step fellowships describe this as a disease. so the fact is that you're right. It was eating away that disease was eating part of myself, right? The disease portions were eating away. And every time I tried to deal with that disease, it actually did cut away, right? Especially when I was drinking and using. Every time I tried to deal with that disease, I was cutting away myself, because really it just got worse, right? So without the right tools, without the right language, and without learning the right, ways to approach this disease, surgically with more discernment and being more selective, and again, replacing the disease portions, because nature abhors a vacuum, right? If I wasn't replacing it with the right elements, then, again, the disease would come back and it would continue to grow and manifest there. But in my case, it's like, a lot of my stuff was, in low self-esteem, and I had no clue about that stuff. And when I heard in the rooms, and I would have never heard this outside of the rooms, by the way, because nobody talks like this outside of 12-step recovery. They say, to have self-esteem, you must do esteemable acts. It's a saying that everybody says in the rooms. I would have never heard that at my job. I would have never heard that from my wife. I would have never heard that from any of my friends existing. I would have never heard that at 7-Eleven or, Best Buy or wherever I go. I would have never heard that, right? None of my podcasts, none of my internets, nothing, right? The fact is, I go into the rooms and they say to have self-esteem, you must do esteemable acts. And I know intuitively, again, oh, here's an area I need to focus on, because I have low self-esteem across the board. And I just don't, and I've heard it from therapists and even afterwards. But the fact is like, I was in the rooms on October, November like ish, right? This is when I started going. And the fact is by December, I was walking through a mall, and I know that like the exact moment I'm walking through the mall looking for presents, right, for my family, which by the way, I never shopped for presents before I got sober. So it's sad to say that shit, but it's true. So I'm walking through a mall to go pick out presents, and I'm looking people in the eye, and I'm asking questions like, where's the store, and da-da-da. And I realized that, like, oh my God, I'm looking people in the eye for the first time in years. And I couldn't wait to go back to a meeting and tell other people that I held my head high walking through a mall looking people in the eye. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, because before that, I knew what the ground looked like. I knew what my shoes looked like, and I knew what your shoes looked like. But I had no clue what color your eyes were. You know what I mean? Like, it just was how I worked. But I got that, and I got that ability by going into the rooms of 12-step, because I got the message of like, hey, buddy, like we get sober here, but we also rebuild our lives using these tools and principles. So, hey, and that's what I started to do, because I started to do the things that they told me to do: be of service, clean up around the house, do the dishes, clean the cat poop, freaking take it to the doctor. Like I started doing esteemable acts in order to get self-esteem. I was just telling a buddy this the other day, and he was making fun of people like getting newly sober, and he was like making fun of the fact that they like don't have like phone bills and whatever. And I was like, dude, I didn't have a cable bill in my name, and I was like making, six figures a year. I had drove a BMW. I had a $500,000 home when I got sober, but there was no bill in my name, right? Because my wife had to prop me up. And I go, so one of my esteemable acts was actually getting a cable bill in my name. Can you believe that, Lindsey? Actually, so at 42 years old, I got like one of my first utility bills in my name. And I couldn't wait to go to a meeting at 42 years old, a man who had his own agency business, had high functioning work, blah, blah, blah. Couldn't wait to go to a meeting and tell people I put a cable bill in my name, right? Like, you know what I'm really doing at that point? I'm showing up to other people that are accountable, going in the same direction, and I'm saying, you know what? Like, I am showing up for my life and my family's life. And how I did that is I put a cable bill in my name. Amazing shit, right? It's like so weird. Like people, when there's low bottom, there's high bottom, alcoholics. I happen to be a very high bottom. The fact is like, high functioning anyway. And I still needed those basic things in order to build, the version of myself that I needed to be. So Lindsey, tell me, those are like my little paths to freedom in that way. What are your paths to freedom in that way too? Do you have any like similar areas that you had to address? Like mine was self-esteem or low self-esteem. What was yours?
Oh yeah, can't relate at all. Yeah, low self-esteem. And that's where I heard that too in the rooms. And that was a mind-blowing thing. It was almost like if you don't take the first drink, you can't get drunk type of, whoa. If you have low self-worth, take worthy actions or do things that a person with high self-worth will do, or a person with high self-esteem. And I think that's what the program really gives us is modeling. And we're choosing who we model. Not everyone is a star student of 12-step programs. And it's this interesting irony of the more we realize our powerlessness is the more power we actually have, and the more choice and the more freedom. So one of mine was finally taking being honest with myself about my job and that it wasn't fulfilling me, and deciding to do something about it rather than just being the victim of my circumstance, this is an internal victimhood. It wasn't, I'm very privileged. I'm very fortunate. I had a great, great job. There was nothing wrong with it on paper. It just wasn't filling my soul. So it gave me the freedom to do that. I was able to move to an island and give myself a few years to heal and find myself. That to me doesn't sound like someone who's being brainwashed and becoming just like everybody else in the world. I don't know if you could do a more stick it to the man type thing. I was working for the federal government. So all of that to say, it made me even more of who I am. It actually made me decide not to conform to things that weren't serving me. And that I thought was, we always talk about like the script that we were given for life. We one day realize isn't our script. We didn't write it. We can choose a different character almost, or go back to the character that we were. And so, yeah, that's just one example. That's probably one of the biggest tangible outward ones. But I was able to, instead of saying, oh, this is just my lot in life, I have a job that's not fulfilling and I'm just going to keep doing it until I retire, I really took accountability and made a really risky change. So that's just an example of how I was given a path, because that would not have happened. That would not have happened unless I got sober.
So what do you think was the more, what helped you to do that? Like, again, I know 12-step recovery, but what were the things that like you had to do initially anyway that really helped you get over that hump to say, like, you know what, I'm going to be this is it. Like, this is, for me, I heard a dude, he was it's so funny. He's a dude completely my opposite, like in terms of overall look and feel, right? He was, just like we couldn't come from a different, areas and backgrounds. But when he spoke about his story in a meeting, doing it at a podium, he had a podium, like a 20-minute speaker thing. I was like, oh my God, I feel exactly the way this dude feels. Like we're pretty similar, actually. Like we're like, on the surface, judgmentally, I was like, oh yeah, like this dude, I'm going to hear nothing about what this dude's going to say, right? Because it's going to be completely different. Yeah. But then when he started to speak, I was like, oh my God, everything. And then we became friends after that too, because I hit him up after the meeting. I was like, dude, like everything that you're saying, like, and so it really showed me. And he was like maybe about a year ahead, right, of me in this way. And you could hear the difference of like, what he was accomplishing and how he was treating his family and, what he was overcoming and the milestones that he was reaching were definitely things I wanted to be. But I love, by the way, that you're right, that you talk about building about, who you want to be. Like, that's kind of what that reminded me of, is like, oh, like I actually became more of the person that I wanted to be in the last 11 years than I've ever like imagined that I would. So I think that's like, so it's so funny to think back to like 11 years and I go, oh yeah, like I was so afraid that I was going to be something that I was, be something that I wasn't, quote unquote. And the truth is, like, I am more now myself and the person that I wanted to be than I ever have been in my entire life. So that's why I really just kind of go like, people poop in 12-step. I'm like, well, maybe you're doing it wrong. I don't know. There's just a certain, like, I'm like, really? Because I didn't get the same results. I didn't get that. So what do you think, like, was like a major, like, change or operation for you? Like, what did you do that kind of like really helped you break that thinking? Like, what, I'm just looking for that.
Well, it gave me my identity back, just to speak to your, like, never been more myself than now. Mm-hmm. Like the day-to-day, I was really, really honest. I talked about it with people. I talked about it with my therapist. I wrote about it. I got really depressed in early sobriety and was hospitalized for a major depressive episode. And that kind of stopped me in my tracks of something's not working. You need to make a change. Speaking to your electric bill analogy, I just remember the first time someone called to ask me to do something, like to walk their dog or something. And just the fact that I was responsible or someone out there thought I was responsible enough to do that. Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. They trust me. They're starting to trust me. Cool. Right. So that's those little things. It's those cable bills. It's those things that weren't a part of my life before, and that now feel like such a gift.
And we really don't know what we don't know, and in those areas, especially because it's like, the minute that you're given the key to the like, so funny, like when they give you a key to like open up the meeting hall or whatever, or they like, they nominate you as a treasurer. You're like, me? Like, you're gonna trust me with the $25, like, oh my gosh. $25. So, exactly. Well, because $25 when I was early in my using career, like if you gave me $25, I knew exactly where it was being spent. Like I had, I was like, fuck you, I know exactly where that shit's going. You give me $50, I know how much that equates to. Give me a half, I'm done. It's like, so it's just like that. So I guess, Lindsey, what would you tell the new person who is considering like this sober life, but maybe they are sober, maybe they've actually been able to put the plug in the jug for a period of time, 30, 60 days or whatever. They haven't done anything to progress in their sobriety, and maybe they're getting the sense that they're white knuckling a little bit, and maybe they're getting a sense that they're not necessarily on the stable path that they thought that they were going to be once they put the plug in the jug. What would you say to that person?
I would say unless they're very comfortable and very cool with how they're living right now and everything seems to be working in their newfound sobriety, I would say to let go and trust, whatever that means to you. You know what that means to you. Anyone hearing this, you just know, you know what that means. Let go and trust, and you will be astounded at the results. To me, it's just a matter of when someone lets go and trusts, not if. And you can fight it for as long as you want. The sooner you let go, the sooner you will start to get those miracles that Carl and I speak of.
My advice is, remember that you can't learn anything if you think you already know everything, right? So just make sure that you leave some room to understand that you're just a human being like everybody else, right? The fact is that, like, we all need a little help out there. I know I needed help. I didn't understand how much help I actually needed until, because I thought everything was working. I didn't understand how much help I actually needed until I asked for help. I hope that makes sense. Again, if you're listening, maybe you're at that stage. Maybe you're starting to realize, like, hey, maybe my shit is not as great looking as it could be. The fact is like, what I really loved is, when I finally started to go to meetings, when I said, you know what, I'm going to try this thing, that's really what it was. I was like, you know what, I'm going to go for, a few weeks and just see how it is again. I'm just going to try it this time. Right. And that opened enough door for me in order to start receiving and hearing things. I actually listened in meetings rather than sitting there judging everybody, that kind of a thing. I do judge people a lot. So I actually sat there and listened. And that was the gift I gave myself. The gift I gave myself was the ability to hear other people and to begin to, like, just chip away a little bit of, like, Carl's idea that he had it figured out, right? Because I knew I didn't have it figured out. I just was trying to convince everybody else around me that I did all the time, And now I'm so much more comfortable. It's so great. Like, I love being in just like a group environment. And if I don't know what something is, I love turn to somebody next to me and saying, what the fuck is that? Because I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Like, I love that because then you learn. You learn just by asking. And that's it. Like, for me, it was just a little bit of willingness to say, like, I don't know. Tell me about that. I'd love to learn more. And that actually that curiosity changed my life. So I guess my final advice would be, stay curious. How's that?
I love that. I love that. Just keep the door crack open for something to enter.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Lindsey. I wanted to forget. Don't forget. Are you doing anything physical in the world that people need to know about? Are you doing anything?
No. My class on Saturday sold out, and that's in person.
Good for you.
Next time I'll probably have something good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Really
that's
exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, sold out just sounds so much sweeter than I'm still trying to get people to come. So, hey, but I do want to, talking about trying to get people to come. So I am every day, and I just decided, I don't know what it was, like maybe like early this month on February, I just said, you know what, like, I'm going to start doing daily readings for my book every day on Instagram. So look, you don't need to buy my book. You can actually just go to Instagram and watch me do it. I also add a little flavor to it. So if you like the podcast, obviously, you can subscribe to those things by going to our YouTube page or Instagram, and then again our SoberPod live group on Facebook. So you can go to all those things. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all those things. And again, engage with me there, dude. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that people just like comment and say shit. So so I definitely read those every morning. By the way, it looks like I'm wearing the same clothes most of the time because I'm like just wearing like a t-shirt. But the fact is like these are my jammies that I'm wearing every morning, and that's just how I do it. Yeah, these are my jammies that I'm wearing. So you're actually seeing me in my jammies. So look at me going completely raw, right? So by all means, and again, I've decided not to bother with redoing them or editing, so I flub and I fuck up and I just keep going. You know what I mean? So no perfection, just progress. So just show up and subscribe and watch those things, and then get your little meditation readings done for the day, or just interact and tell me what you think. There's reflection questions in there every day. Just respond if you want to. I know it's all anonymous and everything. People want to remain anonymous, but really, are we done doing that yet? Anyway. So Lindsey, what do you say to the kind, wonderful, caring, loving, grieving self people?
Trust your truth.
And I say, stay active, stay sober, and I actually say it every day. So, see ya.
See ya.
Soberpod.com. Yeah. It was a sight to see them. Breakfast with Sprite and Seagrams. Wrestling with my vices, exercising my demons. My blessings were blocked, so I never got the message. I'm stressing, I'm only 12 steps from an exit. Regret it, because my imperfections were perfected. I ain't run from it, I accept it and rep it. It's a badge to me, good stories come from a tragedy. And when you survive, the glory will come in Act 3. The wait's over, 366 days sober. Morning affirmations that can start the day for you. Use my favorite bookmark for a placeholder. Finish when the day's over. Okay. Yeah, sober pod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.